Even with people telling me that episode 7 subtitle mishap was episode 8 subtitles, I still was doubting it because I was like, this Emily whole debacle, I was like, how could these cutesy subtitles be for Tower of God? Even though Tower of God can be rather silly at times, well, I got my answer. It's a basically chat GPT AI, and honestly, it makes so much more sense because I still was having disbelief that apparently that subtitle mix-up was still Tower of God. But is anyone else feeling like Tower of Gods kind of fell off this season? Not in the way that, like, it's bad. I'm actually probably enjoying the last handful of episodes more than anything that came before in this season, but it does feel like a lot's missing, and not just on the visual department. It just feels fast-paced, and week after week I hear people come up here saying about how much is cut, and you know, if we were properly adapting the source material, then we wouldn't be at this point until like episode 12 or something. But it's weird because like nothing specifically about the episode's like, oh, that's wrong. It's just more of like, wait, what? It's almost like blink and you miss it. Like, are we supposed to believe that like there's been massive time skips this episode when characters look exactly the same and there's no actual way of looking at anything being different? I think walking into this season, I had a fairly open mind, even with seeing how different the art direction was, and I actually do prefer the visual look of season 1 top to bottom. But with so many people writing off this season before it even aired, I walked in saying I'm happy this show's back, and I'm still happy it's back. But the more it goes on, the more I'm seeing cracks show, both on animation where there's some weird ass cuts, and also just feeling like things are rapidly happening. It's almost like you're speedrunning to get to a certain point, but I'm not sure what the point of speedrunning to get to a certain point is, when along the way, so many characters' motivations and personal stories kind of get left in the dust. Like I said, it's not bad, but like, I know I'm not alone feeling this. I actually probably have one of the more positive opinions of people who are talking about this online. Not saying I'm the most positive, because like I said, I do have my issues. But seeing so many absolute, like, most of the top comments on a lot of social media, on posts from, like, official Tower of God posts, are pretty much being like, you butchered it. So, I do think I'm overall being positive. So, for anyone who's absolutely adoring Season 2, I don't think you can call me a hater like some of you probably will want to. But, you know, I'm closer and closer to saying it kind of does feel like it fell off. I will be very excited if they make a Season 3, but for having a 4-year gap or so between seasons 1 and 2, a show as popular as Tower of God should not be tolerable. And that's really what this anime feels like right now. It's tolerable to watch and at points enjoyable. But could you imagine if something as big as Demon Slayer went from season 1 to 2 with this much of a downgrade both in pacing for the story but visual directing? I don't think Demon Slayer would have survived or would have remained to be as talked about as it was. And honestly, for a show as widely loved as Tower of God, this should be a trademark, especially for Crunchyroll. It's sad to kind of see what it's become. Now, of course, I do have those full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full and good thought to any of these episodes, it's going to be over there exclusively. So they broke it up into 2 points of this episode. The first of which with Kun stuff, and then of course the other stuff with Bam. And honestly, the first half of it was fun. It's just, they just kind of throw you into the thick of it. It's like, okay, we got the whole chat GPT thing, and we get to see about the whole AI, especially in today's climate with how AI is taking off. I mean, it's a lot more like, you know, it hits closer to home than it would if something like this popped up, you know, 10 years ago or something if we were watching it in anime. And seeing basically Emily pretty much give the perfect information, we get to see there's like, they're fighting this like mole, which just so that's, I can't tell if it's something I love about Tower of God or I question about Tower of God, but the character designs can be absolutely what the hell, and that mole was one of them. But our boy, fast as hell, hits that button, gets the W, and then Kun pretty much spanks him on the bottom, saying, what happens if the information was wrong? Were you just going to let your teammates cover up for you? Just basically shaking down, saying, hey, you risked it all and it could have massively blown up in her face. Are we such a pathetic team that, you know, you have to risk things with some chat GPT over here? Like, get your head out of your ass. Moment like that, I really like. I think it's paced well. But then it's like, okay, you know, we got that bitch Rachel popping up again. We love to hate to see her in her, like, Professor X wheelchair. And that's all good. And then it's just like, once it switched over to Bam stuff, it just kind of felt like it started to feel weird again. Like the first half of the episode, I think kind of felt like structured well. It's just the second half, it's weird because like the past couple of episodes haven't been too bad in terms of feeling like we understand character motivations and pacing, but then characters will just be weird. Like when our boy's running to rush to insert the key in order to get the victory, like he screams out loud and he's like, I'm gonna do, it's like, why are we doing that? Like, why are characters who should know better screaming like some shonen character and exposing themselves? But then they do make it up to me, because then you get this like very funny scene where this crazy lunatic thinks he's his pet, and then he plays into that role. He's like, hey buddy, I'm here. Trust me, I'm your pal. I never leave you, only for the realization that Buddy fried him up like KFC one night. So it's like, that's what I mean about the season feeling conflicting. It's the farthest thing from boring. The episodes don't feel like they drag. It just feels like there's a lot of stuff missing. And I honestly feel like if you were to go, whether you've already read the source that's currently being adapted for season 2 or you've never read it, I feel like season 2, I don't know if it would feel like it's bad or it's like not the same. It would just probably feel very weird how jumbled and scattered the adaptation feels, because they have to be cutting stuff, right? Like, I don't think I'm crazy, especially given how much I've been told has been cut before. Like, this episode can't be paced well. And if it is, I mean, maybe the issue stems from stuff from before not being paced well, so then it makes this current content feel a little jagged. I don't know. But in terms of the visuals, like, it's serviceable. It's tolerable. But Tower of God should be more than that. And while Season 1 wasn't always animated extraordinary, the thing that held it together was its very unique art direction. And a unique art direction makes it visually interesting to look at, even if the animation is stiff. And I think if you apply Season 1's art direction to Season 2, I'd probably be saying a similar thing. Yeah, it's kind of weird how they're cutting away, or it's like, yeah, they technically move, but they're not actually animating it that insanely. That's how I feel about it. I don't really like being that, like, critical of Tower of God, because I like the show so much. But I don't know, it's like this episode, for how much I enjoyed it, bummed me out. Because it just feels like, man, I feel like it would have been so much better if we were handling this when Season 1 was being adapted. Like, if Season 1 was a 2-core, you know, like something like that. I don't know. Maybe I am a hater. Maybe some people say I'm being overly harsh. It's paced perfectly. It's beautifully produced, blah, blah, blah. And then there's going to be other people saying I'm not harsh enough. There's no winning when you have such a split fandom on how something like a Tower of God is currently being adapted. Like I said, reminds me of Classroom of the Elite. I still like watching it. I just hope if we do get a Season 3, it's way better produced and better structured and less clearly cutting out key things that probably make it feel better paced. Now, of course, those are my feelings. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Keegan Miller, Atalassium, Ert Swanson, Ike Ickley, Jan Peterson, Hune, Roscoe, Zeekster, Refac972, Still Zero, Natasha N. Henry, Agus TR, Juan Carlos, James Jr., and Leaf Solman. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and y'all have a good one.